Hi everyone. So we're going to be doing something with a box cake mix today, but I'm going to give you tips on how to make it taste from scratch. If you don't have those extra ingredients that I had put on the ingredients list that was sent out, don't worry about it. It's still going to taste great. So to get things started, you want to preheat your oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. And then the other thing I'm going to do, and this is a little bit different than you're probably used to for cakes, I'm going to take a rimmed cookie sheet, spray it with some cooking spray or some butter, and add a piece of parchment to the bottom. We're actually going to be using this cookie sheet to bake our cake. And that's because it's going to bake a lot quicker and it's going to cool a lot faster. You can use a mixer, a hand mixer if you would like, or if you do have a KitchenAid or a stand mixer, go for it and use it. So I'm going to take my cake mix. I'm using Duncan Hines, but whatever you have. I said white cake mix, so that way we can make it cool colors for the rainbow component. All right, so my cake mix is asking for 3 eggs, and this is whatever is on the back of your own cake mix. If you're nervous about cracking the eggs into the bowl, you can crack in a separate bowl to make sure that there's no eggshells in there. I'm now going to add in 1/3 cup of vegetable oil. Okay. Now, my box mix says to add in water, but I'm going to hold off on that right for a second. It wants a full cup of water, but again, I'm going to wait on that. What I'm actually going to do here is now switch over and do some of my hacks. I'm going to be adding into this some vanilla extract to bump up that vanilla flavor in my cake. And I'm also, to help with the moistness of the cake, going to add in a whole package of instant vanilla pudding mix. And I'm going to add in some sour cream. Okay, based on how the batter looks is how much water I'm going to end up putting in. Now, if you only have sour cream, you don't have pudding mix, you can just add the sour cream and not the pudding mix. You can add in other flavorings. I know Miss Duran was emailing me to ask if she could use almond extract instead of vanilla extract. Absolutely. This is where you can kind of play a little bit. So there's a whole pack of pudding mix. And now I'm going to add 3/4 cup sour cream. So you can use whatever extracts you want. Just remember to not add too much. Do a teaspoon at a time. The extracts are super concentrated flavoring. So if you add too much, it's going to end up kind of tasting gross. So a little bit at a time does the trick. The other things that you can do is whenever you see liquid in any recipe, any baking recipe. Okay, so in our case, my recipe on the back of it is asking for a cup of water. I know in my head, that's my opportunity to add in other flavors. So you can take that water and before you add it into your mix, you can steep it with flavorings. All right. So I'm going to take this, put it on my stand mixer. I'm getting it at this point so that way the ingredients are incorporated, and then I'm going to add my liquid in.
Can you add a little like ground cinnamon for more flavor?
Do it. Go for it. Some cinnamon's not going to affect the chemistry makeup of your dessert, okay? So go for it, add cinnamon, and I think you said you're using red velvet. That sounds delightful. Do it, I love it.
Can you add hot chocolate?
So if I was gonna add hot chocolate, I would treat it like cocoa powder. And whenever you're adding cocoa powder, you wanna take out that amount of flour. So if you're, or in this case, it's, you know, if you're using a box cake mix, the flour, baking soda, all that is sort of mixed together. So I would probably take out maybe like, I would say like maybe 1/4 cup of the dry ingredients that I'm putting into the bowl from the box cake and replace it with 1/4 cup of hot cocoa mix. I want to show you what this looks like right now. Okay, so I haven't added my water. I haven't added any real liquid. And you see how like doughy it is? It almost looks a little bit more like a sugar cookie dough than a cake mix. So this is where my liquid is going to come in handy. So I want to add in, my recipe is saying anywhere from 1/2 cup to a full cup. So I'm going to pour a full cup of water into my measuring cup of warm water, and I'm going to pour in 1/2 cup to start, mix it up, and see how that looks. So I have my full cup of water, and I'm gonna add in just about a half of it and put it back in my mixer and see what happens. Whether you are using a hand mixer or a stand mixer, you always wanna make sure to take a spatula and scrape down the bottom, because I don't know if you can see this, but there was some little bits of flour on the bottom. So I wanna make sure to get all of that in and scrape the bottom down. I'm gonna add a little bit more water into this, show you the consistency. That feels about right. Okay, so can everyone see that? So I have my cake mix. I feel like it's the right texture. Now I get to have a little bit of fun. Now I did say this is a rainbow cake. So now we gotta make our rainbow, because that's, you know, just bland one color right there. However many colors you want is the amount of bowls that you need. Okay, so I'm not gonna do every color of the rainbow, but I'm gonna pick 3 different colors to add and split up my batter among the 3 bowls. I would do a nice chunk. Don't just do like a tablespoon. If I don't have that much batter, the food colorings tend to be really strong, and it might actually get flavor in your cake mix, which won't taste very good. So you do want to make sure that you have enough batter to make sure that it can handle the food coloring. So this is about how much that I put in, okay? And I put about the same amount in each bowl, but I could have, you know, put more of one color than another. And I'm actually leaving some in my big bowl because I'm gonna just add some yellow, a little bit of yellow to this cake mix to use as an additional color. So I'll have 4. All right, like anything, you can always add more. Can't really take away in this case. So 1 drop at a time, and then if you want it to be a darker color, you can add more. Food coloring is funny. It doesn't normally add flavor unless you use too much of it, especially red. A lot of people don't know this, but red food colorings can have like a weird aftertaste if you use too much. So you want to be careful about getting something that's too deep of a red color, actually. Okay, so I'm just gonna mix it up really, really well, making sure my food coloring is all incorporated in there. Scraping down the sides and the bottom.
Is there anything like you could substitute for food coloring?
Sure, so fruit powders can work really well. You could substitute in things earlier on. So if I knew I wanted to make something like a purpley color and I didn't have purple food coloring, but I had, let's say, blueberries in my freezer, I could cook those blueberries down to get the juice, and instead of water, add that blueberry juice to my cake mix. Not only would I get a pretty color, but I'd also get some natural flavoring in there too. Okay, so here is where our pan comes in handy. So I have this cookie sheet for those that maybe came in a little bit late. It's a rimmed cookie sheet that I sprayed or rubbed some butter on it, made sure it was fully greased up, then added a piece of parchment paper that was cut down to size for the bottom of my pan. And now I'm going to add my mix. Now the way I add my mix is going to choose sort of the rainbowish pattern that goes here. I could do like a line of each color and try that out. I could lump them all in the middle and let it sort of spread out naturally and maybe get a little bit of a tie-dye effect. I think what I'm going to do is little pockets of polka dots and then mix them together just a little tiny bit. So I'm going to start with my lightest color, actually. I'm going to start with my yellow, and I'm going to take a lump of yellow and put lumps. Let me move this back so you guys can see it a little bit better. Put lumps of the yellow over my pan. So you can absolutely use a typical cake pan, totally fine. It's just going to cook longer. All right, the reason I'm using this particular cookie sheet is it's going to cook in less time. So a regular like 8 or 9 inch cake pan, which is what people usually typically make cake mixes with, it's going to take you about 20-25 minutes to bake. On this kind of tray, it should only take about 15. All right, so, you know, for instance, in something like a timed competition, shaving off even just 5 minutes is a really big deal, right? So that was a nice little handy trick. So I want to show you what it looks like right now before I do any spreading. right? That is a pile of colors there. It looks a little bit more vibrant in person than it does on the Zoom camera, but I want you to notice how it's not even, right? Those lumps are just sort of all over the place. There are parts that are lower, parts that are higher. If I was to stick this in the oven right now, that would not cook evenly. So I need to spread this out thinner, okay? So what I am gonna do is take another spatula, okay? If you have an offset spatula like this one, you can use that. You can use a regular spatula. And what I'm gonna do is take the top of this and sort of just spread it out nicely and get it to the sides of the pan. So I'm just spreading it out so it reaches the edge of the pan. Now, if you are making this from scratch and you have a lot more mix, what you are looking for is about a fingertip deep on the cake pan. So if I was to stick my finger into this cookie sheet, it would be about a fingertip deep. For a regular cake pan, it's about 3/4 of a way full. You never want to overfill your cake pan. Never put the mix directly to the top because then it's going to bubble over. All right, so this is just enough cake mix to go to the sides of my pan, which is awesome. Okay, and I have this really, really cool tie-dyed effect that I really kind of like. I dig it. Okay, again, a little bit more vibrant in person. I'm gonna go pop this in the oven for 15 minutes and then I'm gonna check on it, okay? So I'm just gonna mute everybody. I'm sure a lot of you have probably heard the technique. You take a toothpick and you stick it in your cake. If it pulls out clean, it's done. That's definitely one way to do it. What I like doing to see if the cake is finished is just lightly touching the top, okay? I don't know if you can tell, but it's really springy. All right, meaning when I poke it, I'm not even really poking, I'm just like kind of tapping it. And when I tap it, it goes down a little bit, but as soon as I take my hand away, it springs right back up like I hadn't touched it. And I know this cake is perfect, okay? It is cooked through, the edges are a little tiny bit browned, and that also tells me it's done, okay? If I was to poke it and my hand just sort of like sunk in and it didn't bounce back, that means it needs another minute or two, all right? So that's what I am looking for. So this is done. Now, here's what's so cool about cooking in the cookie sheets. Because it took so little to cook, it's also gonna take not as much time to cool. All right, so I am going to go, we actually only have like about a few more minutes. So I'm gonna give you just finish up the buttercream and I'm gonna tell you what you can do with this cake to decorate. All right, okay, I'm just gonna grab a cutting board and put it on top of my cookie sheet. Flip it over, and because I sprayed it and I used that parchment paper, it should, fingers crossed, come out cleanly. Give it a nice little tap, and oh, you guys, the bottom of this looks so cool. Oh my God, I'm so excited. Wait till you see this. This is amazing. Okay, I don't know if you can see. Check that out. That looks so cool. I love those happy little surprises. So now I can take my cookie cutter and I can cut shapes out of this. So I'm gonna cut all these little circles out. Now I can get a bunch of little cakes out of here, all right? All of the extra cake, okay, so this extra bit, I'm gonna toss in a Ziploc bag, all right? Or in a Tupperware container, and I'm gonna use it for my cake pops, but I'm also gonna try a little bit. And it's crazy, we just took it out of the oven. It's not really hot anymore. It's definitely warm, not hot. Here's my little cake. I want you to see it. So check it out. Look how cool that looks. Okay, so I don't need to bother covering the outside of this like I would maybe a normal cake because it looks beautiful. So why take that time? All right. With that, I'm gonna pack this up before I eat it all. So this way I have stuff to work with for Friday. And I wish you all luck. He's, again, let me know if you have any questions. All right?
Yeah.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Okay.